Morning, guys. I'm gonna go test out the Fuji XT-200 today, give it kind of like a real-world review. I've been using it for the past 2 weeks. Really nice to finally have a self-recording camera instead of the setup over here. I'll show you a little later what this looks like right now. I got the one that has the 1545 power zoom kit lens, but I'm also going to bring the 1680, which I believe is the world's best kit lens right now. And yes, that definitely outdoes the Fuji 1855. I think it's actually made it completely obsolete. So yep, before crowds start forming and I can continue social distancing, let's head out there.
A few moments later.
Alright, so normally when I'm self-recording I use the Sony RX100 Mark VII, but today we're going to use its replacement, the Fuji XT-200. Instead of giving you a spec sheet rundown, we're just going to hop into an image quality test, so let's get started. And yeah, I'm in focus. And let's see with a heavily backlit subject. Probably not the best test with this lens, but turn this to, nope. Let's be a little reasonable. Well, I guess it'd be better if I were here. Yeah, autofocus works pretty well. So, I think the ND filter, maybe in conjunction with this specific lens, isn't the best thing in the world. Here's this. Alright. And how's the autofocus doing? Looks like, I mean, it's tracking my face. I think my hat is covering my eyes. Probably if I turn the eye detect off, it'll be fine. Yep. In focus. In focus. It's just really weird to have a screen on a Fuji camera. Definitely nice to have. Oh yeah, it's definitely picking me up pretty hard right now. It does give you a problem if you are covering your face though. Or at least just me with, nope, no, it picked it up. Never mind. And let's turn it around to a less problematic angle. Right here. Oh god, let's fix that exposure a bit. Base ISO of 400 is really high in my opinion, although I don't think this is really geared towards cinematographers, so probably most people don't care. They'll probably have it on auto shutter as it is. Yeah, let's do the rest of this like this. Yeah, so the box is following me quite a bit. Autofocus is really good. I know you guys can't actually see the box if I had a recorder attached to it, but that would kind of defeat the purpose of this to begin with. Okay, so I've moved on to the vlogging test, which is the one that most people actually care about since this camera does have a front flippy screen. Let me adjust that exposure just a bit. Oh, the cropping with the digital image stabilizer is pretty severe. Okay, this is what full extension looks like without digital stabilization enabled. And next shot is going to be with digital stabilization enabled. Let's take a look. Oh yeah, that's a significant crop, I would say, but on the 1024, it's not something that you notice all that much. Looks really stable on the screen. Really digging the image quality here, really digging the autofocus as well. Video is pretty good, obviously not as good as the X-T3, but that's, given the fact that it's an entry-level mirrorless camera in the Fuji ecosystem, kind of to be expected. It does have a few features that the X-T3 does not have, and I'm assuming it's going to be rolled in at the next update. Right now, let me see if I can find a seat, and we can have a quick little chat about this camera before I have to head back inside. Ooh, bird poop. Alrighty. Okay, so I turned the digital image stabilization off. It's actually not a crazy crop, at least not with the 10... let's fix this. This is a horrible tripod. At least not with the 1024 1635 equivalent lens. Now, do I want to be half blown out? That'll work for this. So, if you're a person who's looking to get into a more professional setup or kind of like up the quality of your digital content, this is going to be my new recommendation. Previously it was the Canon M50. This is the camera that I think the Canon M50 should have been when it came out 2 years ago. Now, the other good thing about this is that it allows you to actually buy into the Fuji ecosystem. So if you buy any lenses, well, we'll get into that back in the office, and people are staring at me out in public. I gotta say, one thing I will never get used to is talking into a camera in public like a psychopath. So I see this as being a really good camera for someone who's just, like, they're really focused on just making content. Maybe right now you use your cell phone predominantly, or if you're like me, you have an X-T3, but you don't have like a flippy screen, so you can't really record yourself all that much. This screen is amazing, by the way. It's probably the best screen I've ever used on any camera ever. And that includes some really expensive cameras, so I don't know what the exact specs are, but I'm sure if you look it up, it's probably something pretty impressive. This eliminates the entire need for a monitor, and maybe I'll cut to a comparison right here. Hey guys, Future Omar here, and I just want to show you the difference. So here is the XT-200 with the little Rode microphone up top, and this is the new setup versus this right here. The X-T3 with the cheapest and smallest screen that I have. I often do use the Ninja 5 and some kind of microphone. I'm using a wireless mic now. Wow, I'm bad at orientation. But this is my favorite shotgun mic, and I use that a lot. Yeah, let's get this to focus. So look at the size difference. It's enormous. You can't even... I mean, this camera alone... I'm so bad at this. You get the idea. You get the idea. This is a lot smaller than this, and more likely than not, you won't be able to tell the difference. Matter of fact, let me show you what my current setup is, and the only reason I'm even using this is because I have no actual use for that monitor there, and it just makes me feel better to know that it's getting some kind of use. Ooh, let me turn that ISO up a bit. Okay, and this is what my setup is right now. Yeah, Ninja 5 over this, unless you need a director's monitor or something at some point. But yeah, that's my other X-T3, and that's my big-ass aperture light. So a small light will suffice off to the side, and this thing here, and you're good to go no matter where you are. Also, I've noticed that this records longer on the same battery. I don't know what's up with that, but if it's software related, please include that in the next update too. Otherwise, this battery grip, like, it's permanently attached to this camera. I've literally never taken it off. So yeah, back to the video. But yeah, like, I'm really happy with the image that I'm seeing right now on this screen. Autofocus on the ND filter. I know the ND filter is definitely cutting it down on its own. What's up? Everyone practicing responsible social distancing right here. And you know, like, they're actually out here running. Technically this counts as my exercise because I got a giant backpack as well, so yeah, that's what I'm sticking with. When I get back to my place, I'll address some of the more my only real two complaints with this. And I know that they're pretty easy for Fuji to fix via a firmware update. I just don't know if this is part of their new segmentation strategy or not. This will probably make some of my self-shot, like cooking videos and whatnot, a lot easier, the ones I do for work, which I should probably start posting up here. Let's just wrap this up inside because it's starting to get a little crowded here. Ugh. So two things that I think they can address with firmware updates that would really make this a much, much better camera. The more important one is, so here's my X-T3, and you see how it has dials? Pretty much, if you're not familiar with Fuji, pretty much all their cameras have these really, really good manual controls. And this one, although it does lag a little bit, I'm not sure if it's because it's electronic and just all electronic dials do that, but that's one complaint. Like, if you could just kind of match up the speed with where I turn it, that would be cool. But what's super weird is that I can't map the ISO to one of these. And I don't know why. So when you're in video mode here, let me see if I can turn this on and actually show you. Yeah. Ooh, and now my 40 screen setup actually might come in handy. Yeah, there you go. Nope, nope. Focus right over here. Okay, so this dial here controls the shutter speed. And this one here controls the aperture for this lens. And I have absolutely no idea what it does when it's using another lens. But this one here does absolutely nothing. And for some reason, you can't map anything here. I want to map my ISO. I'll map my ISO to this over the f-stop in a heartbeat. And that's really only because this is an XC lens. Let me see if I can actually map this if I have a different lens on. Hang on one second. Okay, so I just tossed one of my other lenses on to make sure that this wasn't just an XC specific feature or something. But yeah, you can't map this button, and when you have a regular lens on, an XF lens on, you can't map this button either. And that's just a really weird thing. I mean, everyone wants to change the ISO like that. Sometimes you have to do it on the fly. And although you can map it like to a quick shortcut, right now I have this button for the ISO. Come on, there you go. So this one right here, it's not slow, but I'm used to this. I'm used to this. When I'm out and I need to adjust exposure real fast manually, I like doing this because it happens like that. God, Fuji. So that's really my first complaint, and that's my more serious one. Like, let us map the buttons accordingly. There's no reason for us to not be able to do it. I think it's really weird that you can't do it. And also I think it's weird that you can't map ISO this way specifically, because that's such an important, you know, it's part of the exposure triangle. You want to do it quickly, and it carries over to all the other Fuji cameras pretty directly. So was there just not enough time or something? Help us out, guys. So my other complaint, less important, but I think it's weird that the Eterna profile is missing from this thing. It's a really nice look. You can't really adjust sharpness or contrast or anything internal, and I kind of get that. I do, to an extent, understand why F-Log isn't in here, but I don't get why they would take out a color profile. Now, the only reason I even address this is because Fuji typically takes all their latest tech and puts it into their newest piece of equipment. Case in point, the XA7 had the advanced autofocus for like 2 months before the X-T3 got the firmware update. The X-T30 just got that same update like 3 months after the fact, and that's the same one that this one rocks right here. The 1680 is another really good example. It's the best kit lens around now, and it's possibly the best video lens in a Fuji XF mount, and that lens kind of warrants its own review because I've used it almost exclusively professionally for the last, I want to say 5 or 6 months, almost since the day it came out, especially for event coverage. And I did cover the Arnold Pro Strongman show in the middle of the whole coronavirus thing going on, using that lens quite a bit. I almost didn't pack it, and that would have been a huge mistake if I didn't. I can get into that a little later. They didn't necessarily have like a low quality version, and they were going to have like a red badge version later on that would be better somehow. They just kind of put their best tech in their latest product, and that's that. And that's been pretty important. I think that's how this became such a popular video camera in a relatively short period of time. I mean, it got me to switch over from Canon. Between the cost and the features, it was an easy decision for me. And I've been using the Fuji system for about 2 years now. All in all, Fuji's really good when it comes to listening to their customers and their fan base. And I hope they deliver on these pretty minor upgrades to this camera in the next firmware update. If I'm in the market for an X-T3, I'm probably not gonna be in the market for this, and vice versa. Just because this doesn't have Eterna doesn't mean I'm going to say, I'll spend an extra, $1,400 on a pro level camera that's infinitely more difficult to use than this, just so I can have the Eterna profile. It's just not gonna happen. Similarly, as a professional, I've got a ton of Fuji stuff. I literally have almost every lens. So when I say I'm pretty well invested in the Fuji ecosystem, I mean I have pretty much every lens but the 200mm f2. So you kind of get what I mean, right? Like, not having the color profile here and not having the mappable ISO button, it just doesn't make any sense to me if it's a segmentation, like a business strategy, because if I'm in the market for this, I'm not gonna buy one of these. It just doesn't make any sense. So trickle it down. Maybe people who they're buying their first camera, they're feeling it out, then eventually they want to upgrade to a pro body, they would definitely consider upgrading to like an XT3 or an XT4, especially since, and this is a really big deal, and this is why I still recommend this over the Canon M50, which is still a really good camera. So it's a native X mount, unlike the Canon EFM, which only had like 6 lenses, although they did have the 32-1.4, which I did really like on that camera. Otherwise, you have to carry around adapters, then there's more expensive glass because it's all full frame, but these are all APS-C, so it keeps the cost down. So say you buy this to put out your own content, and eventually you want to start doing content for other people, which is kind of like what happened to me and how I ended up with all this. YouTube, by the way, free resource. I can't believe how much free information and good free information is out there. If you ever wanted to learn things, definitely here. This is a very, very poorly done video. I'm not good at recording myself. My professional work is actually pretty decent. TLDR, this camera, highly recommend it. It is really good to see Fuji finally listen to their customers and give us a flippy screen. I'm really happy that it's coming to the X-T4 as well, that I've got on pre-order and is hopefully not delayed because I do a lot of handheld shooting. These grievances that I have, they're so minor compared to really what you're getting for the price, but I know they're capable of giving us these features and they're really good with the firmware updates all the time. So if a single person there is watching, come on, give us what we want. And in conclusion, if you're someone who actually stuck through this entire video, I thank you. I know it's not the best thing in the world. I'm a little weirded out by self-recording. I do plan on making more videos because it's something to do. It's something I've wanted to do for the longest time. And so I do kind of want to give back to the community a bit because I learned everything on YouTube. I'm literally working professionally. My college diploma, I use it to keep this desk like from wobbling any more than you just saw it now. All the knowledge that I have that I use to make money and make a living nowadays, I learned from YouTube for free. So if there are any specific questions you have about the Fuji system or videography in general, go ahead and drop them in the comments below. Especially with what's going on now, I think if I say the C word, not that C word, like the current C word, the virus one, something happens to the video, it gets flagged. So especially with what's going on now, I'm kind of encouraging a lot of people in my personal network to start getting a feel for things. If you have any specific questions, go ahead and drop them in the comments below. And I'm using right now the commute time I save with the whole work from home situation to actually start knocking out a few of these videos. And I will do my best to answer them accordingly. Thank you very much for checking this out. I don't have a way to sign off, so I'm just gonna do this slowly.